Look, good evening and welcome to the Mary Ellen Abely Awards. My name is Denis McInerney, and it's my privilege to be a lawyer here at Davis Polk and also to be the president of Sanctuary's board. It's been 27 years since Sanctuary, Columbia Law School, and Davis Polk first established the Abely Awards in memory of Mary Ellen. And like so many others in this room, I'm incredibly grateful that we have this event each year to honor her memory, and in so doing, to inspire all of us. Tonight, we are especially fortunate to have several people that we're going to be hearing from, including a true trailblazer for women in the judiciary, Presiding Justice Dianne Renwick, and to be honoring two phenomenal role models, Judge Fernando Camacho for his incredible work in the justice system, specifically in connection with human trafficking, and Dara Sheinfeld for her truly life-transforming work as an attorney for survivors of domestic violence. And I'm so glad that Mary Ellen's family is once again here with us tonight to join in this special celebration, including her brother and sister, John and Kristen, and their families. Now, since many of you didn't know Mary Ellen, I want to take a moment to underscore for you what a special person she was and the wonderful impact that she had, not just on her clients, but on everyone she came in contact with. I was privileged to be friends with Mary Ellen in the 1980s when we were both young litigation associates here at Davis Polk. That's right, I was once young, but I was no Mary Ellen. She was a truly exceptional person who very simply wanted to devote much of her life to helping others. And to do so, even if that meant not only working much longer hours than most others, but also dealing with extremely challenging and at times life-threatening situations for severely traumatized people who had nowhere else to turn. In the late 1980s, when Mary Ellen saw an opportunity to help a newly formed legal center at a budding nonprofit called Sanctuary for Families, she was the first one to raise her hand and volunteer to pitch in as a pro bono attorney. But Mary Ellen didn't just pitch in. Over the next several years, she became a true champion for survivors of gender-based violence at a time when the work in this area was still very much in its infancy. Tragically, Mary Ellen passed away in 1995 after a long battle with cancer. But remarkably, and much like the Jimmy Stewart character George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, Mary Ellen's impact on the lives of countless people who have been the beneficiaries of her relentless commitment to helping others has been quite profound. And I'm just one example of that. For me, but for Mary Ellen, I never would have truly seen this need or the opportunity to help. Indeed, it was exactly 20 years ago today, in 2003, that I attended the Abely Awards in this room and was introduced to Stephanie Ferdman, Sanctuary's Pied Piper. Before I knew it, I was on the Legal Advisory Council, and then 2 years later on the board. And I cannot be more grateful to both Mary Ellen and to Stephanie for opening my eyes to the issues and challenges for survivors, what needs to be done, and what can be done. Now, before I introduce tonight's featured speaker, I have to say the other person I will be forever indebted to for helping me and learning how to help others is tonight's honoree, Dara Sheinfeld, who I've had the honor to work with more closely than anyone else at the firm for the last 4 years. Though Dara is too young to have ever had the privilege of meeting Mary Ellen, I have no doubt that Mary Ellen is beaming from above while watching all that Dara does every day to continue her mission of lighting the way for scores of survivors each year, while at the same time educating me and countless others, attorneys not just at Davis Polk, but throughout the New York City bar, in how to navigate these challenging waters in an extraordinarily effective and trauma-informed way. Dara is remarkable in so many ways. For example, since her return to Davis Polk in 2017, she's had approximately 30 trials, most of which have been on behalf of survivors of domestic violence. While I have not personally had the privilege of going to trial with Dara, without question, the close to 20 Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act cases that I've worked on with her over the last 4 years have been the most meaningful and moving cases of my entire career. I only wish everyone in this room could experience the thrill of standing with Dara outside a prison while waiting to embrace your survivor client who has just been set free as a result of your work. Dorchen will have much more to say about Dara shortly, but I could not leave this podium this evening without publicly thanking Dara for her invaluable friendship and mentorship over these years and for her spectacular stewardship of Davis Polk's pro bono litigation practice. With that, it is my great privilege to introduce our featured speaker tonight. Among the many remarkably noteworthy facts about Justice Renwick's career is that Governor Hochul's historic appointment of her to be the presiding justice of the New York State Supreme Court Appellate Division First Department makes her the first woman of color to ever serve as the presiding justice of any appellate division in the state, and only the second woman to lead the first department since its creation in 1894. Justice Renwick, we are so honored to have you with us here tonight.
Thank you, Dennis. I just met Dennis this evening, but it's quite apparent to me what a dedicated and effective board president you are here at Sanctuary. I think you used the term keynote at one point, and it will be brief. I only have 3 minutes, but I do want to talk about the important work here. Good evening, esteemed colleagues and friends. It's a pleasure for me to join you this evening to celebrate the good work of Sanctuary for Families. I want to thank your Chief Executive Officer, Judy Kluger, for inviting me to speak to you this evening. There you are. I have long admired Judge Kluger personally and professionally for her commitment to advancing women's issues from the time she was an ADA and throughout her remarkable 25-year career on the bench, culminating in overseeing the state's 300 problem-solving courts as Chief of Policy and Planning for the Unified Court System. It is absolutely no surprise to me that she has gone on to again distinguish herself with her outstanding leadership here at Sanctuary for nearly a decade now. So, congratulations. Sanctuary for Families has been a beacon to thousands of individuals, particularly women and their families, who have endured the most challenging circumstances. I applaud those of you who engage every day in the meaningful work of advocating for survivors of gender-based violence. It's so imperative that survivors, primarily those of domestic violence and sex trafficking, have skilled, dedicated, and sensitive legal representation across multiple fields of practice: criminal, family, housing, immigration, particularly when those survivors are from underserved communities and unable to afford counsel. I saw this firsthand as a young lawyer at the Legal Aid Society's Criminal Defense Division at the height of the crack epidemic, which caused extensive devastation to already impoverished communities. As a judge, I also know that a high caliber of representation makes an extraordinary difference, not only in the lives of individual victims, but also in the development of a jurisprudence that recognizes and responds to their needs. We are all aware that in every facet of the legal system, having competent representation makes an enormous difference. And by contrast, lacking representation leaves litigants at a significant disadvantage. Because of the considerable efforts of dedicated lawyers and staff like yourselves, Sanctuary for Families provides the representation that is so crucial, particularly for the most vulnerable people in our society. Thankfully, Sanctuary is aided in its mission through partnerships with pro bono attorneys like yourselves, from firms like Davis Polk, and law students from schools like Columbia. Director Dorchen Leidholdt brings strong leadership to this collaboration, which is a wonderful synergy between legal service providers and members of the private bar. Each brings unique skills and knowledge to provide the strongest representation possible to survivors of gender-based violence. As a housing court judge, I saw the benefits of this synergy play out in my courtroom, and the court system, informed by judicial experiences, has performed diligently in developing specialized problem-solving courts over the years, like domestic violence courts and human trafficking intervention courts, to better address unmet needs. Fortunately, the partnerships between Sanctuary and the private bar are thriving, particularly insofar as Sanctuary's legal center has expanded its asylum practice in partnership with a dozen law firms, including Davis Polk, to address the urgent need resulting from the estimated 130,000 newly arrived migrants in this city. That's extraordinary and so important that they step up and address the needs as they arise. In addition to pro bono attorneys, law students play key roles in providing legal services, especially in the Uncontested Divorce Project, the Anti-Trafficking Initiative, and the Courtroom Advocates Project, where they advocate for survivors petitioning for civil protective orders. I congratulate them on their dedication and their interest in this area. Your services are as valuable as and sorely needed as ever. This organization is truly extraordinary. I commend you all for your ongoing commitment to serving those in need and encourage you to remain steadfast in the incredibly important work that you do every single day. Thank you for that. And thank you for inviting me to speak to you this evening. I want to introduce now our next speaker, who will make the Abely Fellow presentations. Gillian Lester is Dean and Lucy C. Moses Professor of Law at Columbia Law School. As Columbia Law School's 15th dean, her tenure has been marked by many successes, including having recruited 25 full-time faculty, established 6 new law clinics, fostered an inclusive law school community, and strengthened and expanded the school's intellectual and scholarly depth, and obviously done a great job at encouraging and demonstrating the importance to Columbia students of being involved in Sanctuary. She is the recipient of numerous awards, including Columbia's Nicholas Murray Butler Gold Medal for distinguished contributions in academic administration for her service on the university's COVID-19 task force. As reported just today in the New York Law Journal, Dean Lester will soon be stepping down after nearly a decade of her excellent leadership. Dean Lester, we congratulate you on your many years of distinguished service, and we wish you well in your next endeavor.
Thank you, Judge, for that lovely introduction. It's wonderful to be here with you all at our Sanctuary for Families annual awards reception, Abely Awards reception. And thank you, Dorchen, and the entire team at Sanctuary for Families for inviting me to say a few words this evening and to recognize this year's Abely Fellow. And congratulations to Judge Camacho and Dara Sheinfeld on their much deserved honors as well. As you already learned from some of the earlier remarks, Columbia Law School has a very special relationship with the Sanctuary for Families and the Abely Awards. Mary Ellen Abely was the namesake of the award, was a graduate of Columbia Law School, and she really lives in our collective memories at the law school as a courageous advocate for people who experience domestic abuse. And really, Mary Ellen set an example for generations to follow, not only as an advocate for domestic abuse, but as a person who pursued with passion pro bono work, which is very, very deeply ingrained in the culture and the values of Columbia Law School. We seek to teach successive generations of the importance of balancing it, whether they go into public interest work or whether they go into work at a place as splendid as Davis Polk and build into their practice doing important work of pro bono. So tonight, I'm really just thrilled to welcome or to recognize this year's Abely Fellow, Columbia Law School second year student, Ellie Wang. This summer, Ellie worked closely with Sanctuary's anti-trafficking initiative, and her colleagues shared with me how dispensable her contributions were. So you're going to blush a little bit, Ellie, as I describe a little bit about what I learned. The team, the work was hard, and there was a lot of it in the a labor trafficking case that Ellie worked on. And the team spoke about the nuanced observations and the very thoughtful insights that Ellie brought to the case as she took the lead in drafting the affidavit. Drawing on her previous experience working with survivors of gender-based violence, Ellie brought sensitivity and she brought compassion to her work in meeting with clients. And to be able to provide legal support, honestly, that is both, I think many of you will recognize this, that is both strategic as well as empathic, is a rare combination for an experienced lawyer. But Ellie's gifts in being able to do both of those things, and under the guidance of her mentors at Sanctuary, for which we at Columbia Law School are so grateful, Ellie's gifts are already shining through, even in her second year in law school. And beyond this direct client work, Ellie also participated in a Know Your Rights event in Queens, offering information on labor and immigration rights to community members. And I'm so pleased to share that Ellie's connection with Sanctuary has continued through this fall, as she's still engaged in an externship with the anti-trafficking unit, anti-trafficking initiative, and is continuing to work on these critical issues of anti-trafficking and asylum. I know that Ellie's law school experience has been greatly enriched by this opportunity, and that she'll go on to be an even better advocate for having had the opportunities to work with Sanctuary for Families. So to all of you, please join me in congratulating Ellie Wang, the 2023 Abely Fellow. This is for you.
Good evening. So thrilling to be here. I'm Dorchen Leidholdt, and I'm the director of Sanctuary's Legal Center, and we go by our acronym now, CBWLS. No one has completely mastered holistic, strategic, survivor-centered, consistently inspired legal advocacy like Dara Sheinfeld. No one. Now, it's true that a few of us in Sanctuary's Legal Center may have played a part in this. Dara came to us in 1999. That's just about 25 years ago. In her first year at NYU Law School, and learned at Sanctuary that she loved being a family law practitioner under Linda Lopez's tutelage as NYU's student representative for our uncontested divorce project. Dara also interned for our immigration intervention project, learning about the immigration legal needs of our clients at a very exciting time when Congress was actually expanding, not contracting, legal remedies for survivors. By the time Dara joined Davis Polk as an associate, her pro bono dance card was filled with Sanctuary cases. That's a fairly anachronistic reference. When our pro bono supervising attorney, Nami Kim, went on parental leave, Davis Polk generously loaned us Dara to fill the gap. And that was when we first experienced Dara's superb managerial skills. After that, Dara continued to take on many of our pro bono cases, some of our most legally complex and factually difficult cases involving relentless abusers and adversaries and high levels of violence, often co-counseling them with our grateful senior practitioners, especially Jennifer Friedman, Betsy Tsai, and Amanda Noriko, whom we lost in August and miss every single day. For 5 years, Dara headed up our family law practice in first the Bronx and then the Bronx and Manhattan Family Justice Centers. She led her teams of attorneys and support staff in the best way possible, by example. Dara's administrative duties were daunting, but that didn't stop her from continuing to take on the most challenging cases. When Dara returned to Davis Polk in June 2017 to manage its pro bono program, first as pro bono attorney, and then in 2020 as pro bono counsel, often working in close partnership with Sanctuary's board president, Denis McInerney, about whom I cannot say enough laudatory things. Her pro bono leadership and pro bono service reached new heights. Dara trains and mentors Davis Polk lawyers and also brings her deep expertise to train practitioners out of the firm. She continues to take on often precedent-setting cases in diverse, complex legal matters, including Hague Convention cases and cases of incarcerated survivors pursuing parole, clemency, and resentencing under the Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act. So, one of the most important parts of her and our work. And she develops and implements urgently needed new pro bono initiatives, like the one that brings Davis Polk lawyers into screening sessions with survivors in Bronx Family Court, taking everything this legendary law firm offers to those who are in the greatest danger in the poorest urban county of the country. Just think about that. To each of these facets of her work, Dara brings her unique, creative, solution-oriented, can-do ethos. And even in the face of crisis, and this is something I have tried to learn from Dara, I'm not there yet, even in the face of crisis, tremendous focus and composure. While she may have once aspired to be like us, we now aspire to lawyer like Dara. Dara, you carry on Mary Ellen Abely's legacy like no one else. Sanctuary for Families is profoundly grateful for your longtime leadership in expanding and strengthening the highest quality pro bono legal services. Here it is, for survivors of gender-based violence, and for your unparalleled dedication, personal dedication to social justice. And Dara. Oops, I'm not going to take yours. That would be such a bad thing to do.
Thank you, Dorchen, for those lovely, lovely words, and congratulations to my fellow honorees. So when I first entered this building over 2 decades ago, an NYU law student interviewing for a summer associate position, my resume was awash with nonprofit work, family law, internships, and clinics without a trace of corporate experience. Nonetheless, Davis Polk hired me, and then over the next several years taught me to practice with precision and perfection, and allowed me to spend thousands of hours doing the pro bono family law work that sustained me. At my very first family court experience in Bronx Family Court, I happened to bump into none other than Dorchen in the hallway. And Dorchen told me that she had been in the back of the courtroom during my appearance, gasp, and that she thought that I really had what it takes. And I'll always remember those words. Those words really stuck with me and quieted the self-doubt that had overcome me given my nervous presence in court that day. They really changed the trajectory of my career and later gave me the confidence to dive in to a very court-focused job as a family law director at Sanctuary for Families. The years that I then spent at Sanctuary were, despite the weight of the work, filled with joy, love, and camaraderie. I learned how to litigate through crises, how to be trauma-informed, and because of the brilliance and generosity of one immensely talented colleague, Amanda Noreko, who, like Mary Ellen, we tragically lost far too young, how to be a fierce trial attorney. And thanks to my inspiring clients, whose stories I absorbed over the years, I became a better lawyer and a better person. Had it not been for the opportunity to return to Davis Polk to help lead the firm's pro bono practice, a job that I was confident would allow me to continue working alongside Sanctuary for Families, I probably would have been a Sanctuary lifer. And though I no longer have the pride of standing up as staff at Sanctuary's annual benefit, in exchange, I get to revel in the breadth of results we have achieved as partners over the past 6 years. Winning decisions in Hague Convention cases that secure the safety of women and children, and helping to free criminalized survivors from unjustly long sentences for crimes committed as a result of their victimization. Getting to do this critical work at a firm like Davis Polk, with continued opportunities despite my seniority to grow and to learn from amazing legal minds like Bob Fisk, Denis McInerney, Greg Andres, Tatiana Martins, Sharon Katz, and Amy Starr, just to name a few, is truly a rarity and indeed a privilege. And to practice alongside a fierce and mighty pro bono team, which has grown in size from 3 to 10 in just the 6 years that I've been back, creating our own little mission-driven corner on the 26th floor, is really the icing on the cake. But without the love and support from my family, many of whom are here today, and especially my Davis Polk alum husband, John. This amazingly fulfilling and at times all-consuming work would not be sustainable. So thank you. And finally, to my 3 children, Talia, Asher, and Oren, who are here today, you have always served as my inspiration, given the promise that I made years ago to have a career that I'd be proud to talk to you about and one that I'd be eager for you to follow. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Judy Kluger, and I've had the privilege to lead this organization for the last 10 years. It's kind of hard to fathom. And I want to welcome Mary Ellen's family, who've been here for the last 10 years and who come every year to honor her as we do. So really, thank you for joining us tonight. It is my tremendous honor to present this year's Abely Award for leading women and children to safety to my dear friend, the Honorable Fernando Camacho. The award is presented each year to a legal leader who has made a profound difference in the lives of survivors of gender-based violence and who embodies the spirit of Mary Ellen, whose memory we honor this evening. I can think of no more deserving recipient of this year's award than Judge Camacho, who has dedicated most of his judicial career to helping revolutionize the response of New York State's justice system to survivors of trafficking. Judge Camacho was the first judge in New York State to recognize that our justice system not only was failing to identify the violence suffered by people in the sex trade, but was re-victimizing them through arrest, prosecution, and incarceration. I very clearly recall asking Judge Camacho about what motivated him to start the first human trafficking court. He said one night he was presiding over arraignments and a young woman was charged with prostitution appeared before him. When he saw her hopeless and vacant eyes, he knew that the paradigm for how trafficking victims are treated had to change. And he pioneered the transformation of our court system response that intensified the stigmatization of victims to one that recognizes the harm that trafficked people suffer and offers them an exit from exploitation and abuse. From creating the Human Trafficking Court that became a model for the whole state to spearheading Suffolk County's Concepts Court, which offers assistance and support to young sex trafficking victims, Judge Camacho models a commitment to survivors that is unwavering, profound, and life-changing. And I'm going to go off script just for a moment to talk about something Judge Camacho and I spoke about just a few minutes ago. As we were waiting for all of you to gather, I asked him, I said, Fernando, you must be heading up court administration in Suffolk County. He said, no, I've asked to be transferred to family court so that I can work with young children who are part of the court system. Most of you in this room know that Supreme Court judges do not ask to go to family court. It is usually exactly the opposite, but this speaks so much to who he is and why we're honoring him today. So at Sanctuary, our goal is to create a world where freedom from gender violence is a basic human right. And we are profoundly grateful for Judge Camacho's decades of pioneering leadership on behalf of survivors. I'm delighted to present this year's Abely Award for leading women and children to safety to my friends and colleague, Judge Fernando Camacho. I'll take it. So you don't.
Thank you so much, Judge Kluger. I'll tell you what I said to her previously. This would not have happened without Judge Kluger and Chief Judge Littman. So I want to thank Judge Kluger and Dorchen, Sanctuary, Davis Polk, and Columbia Law for this incredible honor. In reading through some of the history of Mary Ellen Abely and the list of honorees, I thought to myself, I don't belong in this group. Yeah, here I am. My co-honoree, Ms. Sheinfeld, thank you so much for all the great work that you do. Congratulations. So, I also want to recognize my wife, who's here today, Andrea. There were a number of years when I was on this mission to raise awareness that I would be on a speaking tour every month. I would have 3 or 4 or 5 events out of state. And not only did she not hold the fort with 4 kids, she encouraged me, find more places to speak, find more places to speak. Keep talking about it. Thank you. I spent the first 18 years of my career as a prosecutor and then as a judge, working in a court system that re-victimized persons arrested for prostitution by incarcerating them. Shame on me. Then, about 20 years ago, I was presiding over an even arraignment court in New York City, typical arraignment shift, when I was about to impose a 30-day jail sentence on the 16-year-old girl who was charged with prostitution. And all of a sudden, I had an epiphany. The skies opened. I finally acknowledged an ugly truth, a truth that hurts. It's this: sad, depressed, vulnerable children, runaways and throwaways, exploited by brutal traffickers and by morally corrupt buyers, were coming into our courts in New York State, and rather than recognizing their suffering, we were throwing them in jail. Since that night, I have spent the next 20 years of my career advocating for sexually exploited youth and victims of sex trafficking. In considering what this very, very special award means to me, an award created in memory of a remarkable human being who truly, truly cared about the most underserved, I feel differing emotions. I feel a deep sense of sadness when I think about all of those, many of them kids, who lost their lives because they could not overcome the trauma and the wounds they suffered at the hands of those who bought and sold them. I often think of 16-year-old Erin, one of the first participants in my human trafficking court. And I'll never forget the morning I was informed that her tiny, lifeless, battered body was found in a Long Island Railroad yard on a blustery February morning. Broke my hand when I punched the wall. I cursed, screamed, I cried, and I moved on. Then I smile and I feel hope as I think of the survivors. I think of that 16-year-old little girl who appeared in front of me that night in Queens Criminal Court arraignments. That little girl changed my life. If you want to know the rest of the story, we've kept in touch. We're still in touch. I have a big picture of her and her son on my desk in my chambers. Often people ask me, when I talk about her, Judge, you saved her life. I said, no, you're wrong. Who do you think needed saving more? A 16-year-old runaway who had no one in the world, or a 43-year-old judge who for years turned his back on suffering children? In a sense, we saved each other. So those survivors, those courageous souls whose spirit was stronger than the fists of their tormentors and the apathy of our communities, they inspire me. They're a shining example of the power of the human spirit. And I dedicate this award to them. Thank you.
So normally I close the evening with a lot of thank yous, but I'm going to skip those. Those in the room who were going to be thanked, I know you know that we appreciate all the work you've done here. It's been an amazing evening. Thank you, Dara and Judge Camacho, for those amazing words, and you touched us all. And we hope all of you leave here inspired to continue the work of honorees and to continue to hope for a world free of gender-based violence. Have a good evening.